Welcome back to Scratching the Surface. My name is Justin, aka Money.
And my name is Cody, aka Junes.
Junes, how excited are you? Because this movie we're going to be talking about is in the books for me. I mean, I don't want to spoil anything too soon, but it's up there.
Also up there for me. I'm really glad we came back to this one. I think we're going to have a great time talking about this. I think a good amount of people who are horror fans have probably seen this, but I'm excited to give a quality recommendation to anybody that has not to this point.
Yeah, and we are going to be covering The Descent, released in 2005. They literally hit the money with this film, and the cast we get pretty solid overall. Great cinematography, makeup effects, the design of what I would call them either, like probably crawlers, the monsters we see in this movie. So freaking good. And the sound effects we hear, spooky shots and some jump scares. It's so good. It's everything you'd want from a horror movie. And before we dissect this awesome film, thank you guys for tuning in. We appreciate all the viewership we're getting. And anybody that's new, welcome. Make sure to check us out on YouTube. You can see our faces, full length episodes with each recurring episode. And you can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and check out some of the content we have on TikTok. And that is at Scratching the Surface 100. And I just can't wait to get into this. So, and yeah, Junes, what were your just overall thoughts? I kind of mentioned a few things there about it feeling pretty realistic and things like that. What are your just initial thoughts, man, on The Descent here?
I got to say, Money, I was jazzed to rewatch The Descent. Not many horror films warrant a repeat viewing, but this is one of them.
Yeah.
I recollect watching this in probably middle school and being absolutely petrified from what I remember. It's such a scary movie. Neil Marshall, our director, gives us an all female cast, which is luring for me. This is different. We usually see an all male cast or a mix of both male and female. And this was a decision they made in the production process that, hey, this is a little bit unique. We haven't seen this a whole lot yet in the horror genre. Let's make this an all female cast. I think the characters here are very believable. The set that was created and utilized for the primary setting is superlative. I don't think it gets a whole lot better than that. And the Descent, what it does here, Money, is it refrains from pitting us against the main antagonist right away and instead immerses us in repeatedly stressful situations all throughout. The tension between the friend group is synonymous with the claustrophobia experience within these caves, slowly building until it fractures like Holly's leg.
Ooh. Ooh. I
Spoiler.
love that. I love that.
But my God, this is just a fun drop into peril, and I'm ready to discuss it in depth, Money.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And we will. We will. So, what do you say? Let's just dive right in. No pun intended, because in the opening scene, actually, we get some light water rafting. Um, Not necessarily people diving in. I've never gone light water rafting, but pretty intense here. Opening up with the movie, we see Sarah and Juno, who right now are the actual main kind of protagonists. And Juno actually switching up and kind of being an antagonist later on, which we will obviously discuss. But yeah, we get introduced to uh, Paul, who's played by Oliver. Let's see, how do you pronounce his last name? Milburn, and that is actually Sarah's husband, and then uh, Jessica, who's their daughter, played by Molly Kale, I believe that's how you pronounce it. And we see Juno too, but Juno is actually played by Natalie Mendoza, and we'll introduce kind of the other characters too here shortly after this first act. But when we get introduced to them, but we see them, we get introduced to them. There's some dialogue and things that happen, and like what's great about this movie, literally 3 minutes in, probably, uh, Paul and Jessica die actually to a horrific accident. Junes, I know you're gonna love this, but it's like a Final Destination almost kill. They like hit a car. Almost look. Do you know what they got hit by? It almost just looked like copper poles or rods or
Yes,
metal rods. Um, through the
that's
windshield right into their heads, like it was straight out of like Final Destination. That's like 3 minutes in.
what a freaking awesome opening. We then transition into the hospital. We have a brief moment, almost a dream of a young girl with a birthday cake in front of her with the candles lit. And it says, "Happy birthday, Jessica." It's brief, it's a 5 second long scene here. We then transition straight to Sarah in the hospital bed, awakening from her dream. She finds the hospital to be empty, nobody's there. She looks down at one end of the hall, and the lights start slowly shutting off one by one, approaching her closer and closer. Sarah decides to run the other way in the hall, but the lights slowly keep turning off until she's encompassed by blackness. She then is, boom, snapped back into reality. She is being grabbed and caressed by Beth, who is there to console her in the hospital. It is now real life. We've got our people working in the hospital. We see Juno also by them crying. So we ended up in the hospital. Sarah lived, luckily, but her husband and her child, Jessica, perished in the accident.
I love how they did that. So, um, after following kind of the short hospital scene we get, uh, we basically, I can talk about it now. We basically get introduced to the six girls, uh, that are in this film. So I already mentioned Juno and Sarah being the main characters. We also have Beth, who is played by Alex Reed, Sam, played by Mayanna Buring, Holly, played by Nora Jane Noon, and Rebecca, played by Saskai Mulder. I'm probably pronouncing that first name wrong. And then, like I mentioned, we had Paul and Jessica briefly, very briefly, already dead. So we already kind of have a kill count of two people already. So, which really puts a predecessor for this movie with that death. I think, if you're a first time viewer, or maybe you haven't seen it yet and you're listening, it really sets the bar for the rest of this movie. So, and it only gets better in my opinion. So you're in for a treat. But that's the group. Very simple cast. I love them. I just, it's so freaking good. And so we get introduced to the group. We're seeing events here kind of unfold where uh basically Juno, kind of being the ringleader she is, she basically gets the group together. She picks a spot out in the woods, basically for the group to go on a caving adventure. And watching this movie, Juno is kind of like, she likes, she's very independent. She's strong willed, very stubborn, I would say, possibly. Um, and like I said, just she has that ringleader mentality. She loves making decisions, and she loves doing, some crazy things, almost like an adrenaline junkie. But we learn that Holly is like that too in this movie. She dresses differently. She's got some different experiences. There's some really good dialogue here that unfolds. And we get quite a long scene with the girls out in that cabin, spending the night there. And then they basically just spend the night, have fun, have beers, get together. We hear some stories and stuff. Learn more. Just the characters are just dragged out here. We learn some stories about them and things like that. And the next day, they basically go out for the cave, and that's where really things start to get interesting. But we learn about the group, the death, couple deaths from Sarah's family. Like, you know, characters are drawn out, and we're up until this point where they arrive basically at their destination, and Juno has a little surprise for them. Junes, and what's that surprise? Arriving upon their destination.
So we are in the Appalachian Mountains in North Carolina. we have been told this first 15, 20 minutes of the film by Juno that we are going to the Borum Caves,
Hmm.
a cave that has been explored fully, supposedly, that everybody thinks, by other human beings. So it's safe. It's
Hmm.
nothing crazy. It's not going to be something to put everybody in danger. All of our characters are under the belief that they are going to the Borum Caves. Everybody still thinks that once they initially get down into the cave, but once the main issue they come across, which is when they crawl through one of the small tunnels within the cave, and this is really early on. This is when they first touch foot within this cave. They go through a small tunnel, everything's going fine. But then once they get to the end of this tunnel, one of the last people out, this tunnel collapses. And now they are trapped. It becomes not just a life or flight, we have to survive. Now people are questioning Juno. Where are we at? Are we in the Borum Caves?
Hmm.
And we have Rebecca, who did a lot of reading up on the Borum Caves, and she says to Juno, "This was not in the book. Where do you have us at?"
Yeah.
Juno tells them this has never been explored. No one's ever been down here before. It's kind of an ego trip for Juno. She wanted to go somewhere with a group of friends so they could name it themselves.
At this point, they're all in there. They kind of had a scare. Trust is broken. Tensions are high. And basically, the only option now is just literally to move forward. And they don't know, keep in mind, they do not know about really the cave dwellers or crawlers at this point. And they kind of traverse into a system to basically cross an opening, if you will. It's just a huge gap between them they have to cross. And I love this scene. Maybe I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but I love this scene. Um, and believe it or not, in the movie they do show kind of like a pulley system that was previously there. Like another set of people were trying to explore it. It maybe didn't quite make it out. Who knows? But I love this scene. Juno pulls out her freaking, climbing skills and, you know, creates basically this pulley system for them to cross. And this, Junes, is an intense, intense scene. What do you think of this as Juno is trying to be a badass here for him?
These are the high stress situations I mentioned early on in my initial thoughts
Hmm.
that fills in the first half of the film leading up to the creatures beautifully. This just keeps me so entertained. This was probably one of my favorite moments when they're trying to cross this little void within the rock that they are currently at. And I tell you what, the little pulley system that Juno rigs, she is the most experienced woman here by far. The
Hmm.
other ladies, they are, I would say, okay at being able to do this exploring, and they are not novices by any means, but they are not as good as Juno. And what she does is very smart. And then she even says to them when everybody has crossed through this void that I have to save the rope. Juno
Yeah.
decides that she's going to try to basically climb and attach to the top of this rock and one by one keep clamping as she goes all the
Hmm.
way to the side where everybody else has safely arrived. If she drops, she probably will die. We had Beth drop a rock before they started doing this, and it took at least probably 5 to 8 seconds for them to hear it. So this is a long drop. If Juno drops, she's likely dead. Luckily, before she does fall, she gets tired. She can't hold on any longer. Luckily, there is a rope that is attached to her, and she ends up draping down against the side of the rock. Her friends help her back up. However, one of the characters here, I think it was Sam, ends up getting her hand pretty much burned through and gashed with the hotness of the rope. That's a great few moments. There's a few more of those coming up, so that's a lot of fun to talk about.
Following that too, I don't know exactly what happens. But Holly, dude, Holly, she ends up breaking her leg too. After a little bit more traversing and figuring things out. Uh, because they think too at this point that they see light and it was kind of just an illusion. And they kind of scatter and break for it. And Holly just, I think, traverses too fast. And dude, she snaps. It's brutal. And um, Sarah actually, I think at this point too, she's like using like a camcorder, old style camcorder. She's got like night vision on it too, but she gets a shot of a ton of crawlers, I think, too, at this point. And or if it's one, I can't remember. But we get a very good shot of it. And she goes back, dude, to try to tell the group, and no one believes her. Like no one, what the hell does she know at this point? Um, and she expresses how dangerous this is already, not only after one of her friends broke her leg, but now they're dealing with other living things in this cave that no one has ever known about. So hell starts kind of, breaking loose.
The further down these ladies go, the closer they are getting to this humanoid's den.
Oh, yeah. They were just scratching the surface before, and and now, dude, they go down. I mean, yeah, they're going further down. That's where these things are. It's where they're migrating, and yeah, like they're getting real close to their den, their living place. So,
I think this first half of The Descent is a whole lot of fun. And if you're looking for a good horror movie to watch, you're going to be on the edge of your seat. I don't think you'll be disappointed. I love the introduction we got to our characters. The tension was so high. Every moment was stressful, whether it was just trying to climb through a tight hole or trying to cross a freaking void in the rock. These are all awesome moments. The fracture in the leg, the pulley rope freaking ripping open the skin of Sam's hand. All of these are awesome moments, and they just build us up for what's to come in the second half.
yeah, the eeriness, darkness, still shots of these crawlers, jump scares, drawing the characters out, learning about them. Everything is so vital and important. And just some of the scares we get, and shocks we get, and intense moments we get in this first half are so good, and it only gets better. Um, and things we learn about the characters down the road. So great first half. For our table talk, we are going to be doing
Let's hear it.
we're going to be ranking 5 movies blindly again because we had such a good time last time with it. And not knowing what comes next is so fun. Really, you really want to try to hit a perfect list if you can, but unfortunately it doesn't always happen like that. So
I will start money for you. Number one, I have Paranormal Activity for you.
ooh, I'm going, you know what, I'm going 5. I'm going
You're going
5.
five.
I'm going 5. I
Five for Paranormal Activity for the money, man.
Call me a hater. I'm just not a I'm not the biggest fan of those films.
Number two, the second one I have for you, money. Would you rather?
Ooh. Now Junes knows I love this movie. I'm gonna go 3. I'm kind of setting the bar with that. I think you're gonna pull something out better, hopefully.
The next one I have for you, money. The Lazarus Effect.
Okay. Now, I've actually recently seen this. Such a good movie. I freaking love the plot. Good characters in it. You know what? I'm gonna go 2 on that.
Ooh, damn, you
I
like the Lazarus
I don't
Effect.
think that movie got actually very good ratings,
It
but
didn't.
I fucking love The
Woo.
Lazarus Effect. Great plot. So, if you guys haven't seen it, anyone listening, go watch it. Such a good movie. Such underrated movie that probably, dude, a lot of people haven't heard about. I freaking love The Lazarus Effect. I'm going 2. I got Lazarus Effect at 2. Would You Rather at 3, and Paranormal Activity at 5. So I got the 1 in the 4 spot open. So
Yeah.
this is huge. This is a huge decision coming up.
Halloween 3, Season of the Witch.
Now, dude, this is one of the biggest controversial like things because so many people hate it, yet so many Halloween fans place it high on their list. Uh, we don't get one shot of Michael Myers in this, and with that, I have to go 4.
Ooh, I don't know if you're going to like number one for you, money. The last film for your blind ranking that I have, money,
Oh boy.
is Us from the director Jordan Peele.
I can go with one on that.
You're
That
good
was
with
a
that. Oh,
I like not over I don't know, man. Us
most
not
people would agree with you. Most people would agree with you, but me, I just didn't like Us.
Us was okay. It was just okay.
Let's hear mine. I'm very nervous here. I don't know what I'm going to do. I hope to God this is a good list.
I'm gonna go The Exorcist, 1973 original. I'm starting you
Ooh,
off strong here.
I'm going three.
You're going three. That's like okay. I'm shocked a little bit. I thought you'd go two, maybe not one right off the bat. But next movie I'm gonna give you Pet Cemetery from 1989.
I'm going to go four.
Gonna go four. Okay. Don't necessarily blame you there for that one. I'm not gonna lie. Next one I got for you, Junes. I'm gonna go Final Destination, the first one from 2000.
While it's fun, it's different. It's its own thing. You can't
It's
hate
very
on
it's
it
is
completely, but
very its own thing.
it's it's a five for me. I can't sit there and be like, oh my God, Final Destination's my number two. No, not a chance. It's my number five here. Let's hear what we got left here.
All right. For your fourth movie, we're gonna switch it up a little bit. Kind of an oldie, but classic. We're going Psycho from 1960.
I'm going one. I'm going one there. Thank you. Thank you for giving me a one because I was really nervous
Okay.
there. I felt like I was making some
I
just
dude,
dumb moves, man.
I thought you'd put The Exorcist right behind there.
I like Psycho more. I think
Yeah.
it's more classic. I think
Yeah.
the horror elements are much more well infused. While the body horror in The Exorcist is of course fantastic and the themes were uncharted territory at that time, I still think Psycho is
Yeah.
overall a better horror film. That's just me and I'm so nervous. I don't know what I'm going to have here. I was nervous already, but now I'm shaking. I'm trembling.
All right. We're going your fifth movie, June's Terrifier from 2016, the first one.
You
That's
know
your
what?
two. That's your
You
two,
know
man.
what? I'm probably gonna get a lot of hate here. I like Terrifier a little bit more than The Exorcist.
You had Psycho at one, Terrifier at two, The Exorcist at three, Pet Cemetery at four, and Final Destination at five. You did pretty good, man.
The
Honestly.
only thing I would potentially switch is having Pet Cemetery and Final Destination. I would maybe give Final Destination
Yeah.
the edge, but overall,
Yeah.
I do think Terrifier is more enjoyable than The
Yeah.
Exorcist, and I do think Psycho is more legendary.
You gotta do what you gotta do, man. So I thoroughly enjoyed that, Junes. Back to the descent. Thanks for tuning in so far. If you're still here, we love you guys. And with the descent, we're at the point now, like I mentioned right before, where all hell starts to break loose, and we get a scene that has a. We're basically in the den, right? And we get a scene with a shit ton of bones, dude, from who knows what. Probably some humans in there. But and this is basically so eerie, and this is where the dwellers come out, and we start getting kills. June's finally with these creatures, and a person that actually gets killed in this, I believe, is Holly, uh, who dies, and horrifically too. I think she gets like her neck or chest eaten out, like clawed out as well. Uh, very horrific, but everybody scatters too at this point, which is the last thing you want. But dude, these things are coming from everywhere. And we see kills from almost everybody, not everybody, but a lot of on screen time with Juno and Sarah getting kills throughout this second half of the movie, which I know you'd agree on. But Holly gets killed. Like I said, they separate and they things kind of start to calm down. And there's things we actually find out about these crawlers after the dust settles a little bit. I know I'm talking vaguely over it. Uh, with these monsters, and we learn that they're blind, basically. And you can shine a light right up to their face, they're not going to see it. But you make one small noise, they are flies on shit. They are going at you. And it's so cool the detail they did with this. Um, and again, insane shots of them as well. But what did you think, Junes, of just that scene? Dust settles. We learn more about these creatures. These are vital, vital, vital things to this movie.
The creatures are so fast. Clearly, these things have evolved over
Yeah,
hundreds to thousands of years. Who knows how long they've been down here? They can climb these walls within the caves. They are extremely fast. They are agile. They can jump right over you with ease if they have to. And we actually see that kind of happen when we have Holly's neck get bit out. And I love when her neck gets bit out because it's all hectic. It's chaos. It's loud in these scenes. But when her neck gets bit out, silence. We see the blood spew out of her neck. She falls to the ground silently. We have Juno try to come back and save her, save Holly's body. I don't
yeah,
want them to drag Holly off to be a meal. And we see just how territorial these things are because it's hissing at her. It's telling her, bitch, this is my meal. Get off. Being a badass, she takes out
yeah,
her little pickaxe or whatever the hell you want to call them, those little pick things they use for climbing. And she just goes to war with this humanoid. These are some fun moments. We get to see just how strong Juno is, regardless of whether she's a good friend or not. She certainly is a badass and she can step up in these moments. She makes the quick decisions when she has to. She ends up killing this thing. She's obviously just overwhelmed after she's able to kill the humanoid. She is flustered as fuck. We have a scene here where it's showing something approaching Juno from behind. Juno turns, throws her pick into the direction, right to the neck of Beth. And Beth
yep.
is sitting there with this pick poking through her freaking throat, and she
Oh,
starts pretty much
oh,
bleeding out.
yeah,
Oh my god, like how good is that? And Juno is so flustered. She doesn't know what to say. She's obviously shocked. This whole situation is shocking for everybody. And she made a mistake, and Beth can't even get words out. She lets Beth fall to the ground. She doesn't try to save her. And as Beth is falling to the ground, she grabs a necklace off of Juno. And this necklace is important for later on. This is just cruel, but what do you do if you're Juno? I don't know if I try to save her. She clearly is probably going to die. She just took a pick through the freaking throat.
yeah. She's gone, dude. Trying to get over that. Sarah comes to after hallucinating because, like I said before, they scattered, and we just kind of see a quick shot up close face of Sarah, and she like opens her eyes, like she comes to again after hallucinating. And like I said, we find out the crawlers are blind. Sarah, now speaking of badasses, June,
Ooh,
Sarah freaking comes out like Tomb Raider in this bitch, scaling the rocks, being so keen to detail. Being just a survivalist is the most important thing you can do. And you could argue that's what Juno was trying to do. Obviously, that was an accident before. But Sarah, man, she comes out being like Tomb Raider, making these kills, just acting like she's been down here doing this all her life. It's insane. And I love the way they depict her in this second half of the movie, being scared and shy after the death of her husband and daughter. Now just turning that into something completely badass. I freaking love it.
beast mode was activated for Sarah because we see her in a scene where she's got her camera with the night vision. She's seeing Holly being drugged back to the den
Mm-hmm.
and being fed on, which has to be, I can't imagine the brutality watching that. And she ends up getting chased. She runs through and she, I believe, trips and falls into a pool of what I assume to be blood. And the surface of this liquid is perfect because there's almost a chunky matter floating at the top of this little pool of blood. It's so good. All goes silent. And she peers out of this pool of blood, just drenched in it, man. It's just so badass. And that is when I think the beast is unlocked fully. And she ends up having one of the humanoids pop up behind her in this pool of blood. And she, as a badass like she is, fucking takes this thing out, man. She just goes berserk on this fucking thing. We have been scared of the humanoids, but now we feel like we have a chance. We can fight back. We can kill these things. And Sarah goes to show just how brutal we can be when our lives are on the line. And that's
Yeah.
it's plain as day displayed for us.
Yeah. Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, Junes, but something we need to talk about. I don't know if it happened just before that or after. Uh, but basically, we find out Beth, that just got stabbed in the neck, is barely alive yet, and Sarah runs into her. Um, and we find out she's alive. Basically, Beth is saying to Sarah, like, you cannot trust Juno. Sarah finds the necklace, which obviously, very important detail too before, because it was on Juno. We learned that she was the one that did this to her, and after Sarah and Beth's interaction, Sarah actually tests her with that later on. I think up to this point, when after that scene happens that we just talked about with the pool, uh, that Sarah actually asked her, like, so how, she asked if how a couple people are doing, and then she's like, so how's Beth? And Juno just kind of like shakes her head. She's like, didn't make it. When actually she was kind of anticipating hearing like, I accidentally killed her. Being in Juno's spot, how, like, I don't think anyone would probably want to admit they basically just committed murder. But given the situation they're in, it's tough to say. Sarah, again, just I'm gonna keep saying it, dude. Total badass. And even in like the movie poster too, you can see it, that look in her eyes, dude. Just a flip switched. And her facial expressions, everything just stone cold, very stoic looking. And she's out here to frickin', kill some of these things and help her friends out if she can. But um we get a shot or a scene actually where Sam is attacked trying to cross an opening, and she's actually slit in the throat. And I think Rebecca was also killed in this scene. And we're basically left with Sarah and Juno at this point. But while we're down in this cave, we were kind of debriefing before this, and even talking about it. But like once they're down in this cave, man, things start to happen. But they're so good. You think you can anticipate something, and boom, just like that, something else totally different happens, and it completely changes the trajectory of this movie. We have an insane plot twist, and like I mentioned earlier too, Sarah actually catches Juno lying about Beth after asking if they made it out, and such a cool little thing that they added. But yeah, basically the whole friend group is killed. But yeah, at this point, dude, we're basically in our last act, to kind of keep us on a track here. And uh, I was gonna say Juno actually takes one in the leg from Sarah leading up to this point. Sarah knows what's happened. She kind of has a realization of what's going on, and Sarah stabs Juno in the leg with that climbing pick that we mentioned earlier, and leaves her. Insane. Again, just adding to the plot. What did you think of these moments, Junes, building up to this? Obviously, you've seen it multiple times, but watching it for the first time, that had to have been such an insane, decision from Sarah. Even despite everything happening and the circumstances they're in, man, it's like, do you think that was a smart thing? Is that something, maybe you thought something differently would have happened? What were you thinking?
It was shocking. Juno, even before that, revealed to Rebecca and Sam that she saw markings from what had to have been some humans that were down here a long time ago.
Oh,
And
yes, dude.
she
Yep.
thought maybe that those would lead to the exit. The three of them were saying, or the two of them, I should say, Rebecca and Sam, we should just get out of here. Sarah is long gone. She's probably gonna die. Let's leave. And Juno, just a weird way to try to repair a friendship. She says, no, I'm going back for Sarah.
Yeah.
And just to have Sarah do that is even more crazy. But I can't blame her, man. I can't blame her. There's that moment where they're looking each other in the eyes, and Juno knows she might do it. And when she puts that into her leg, oh, that's just so amazing. And she leaves her for dead, and we can hear the screams from Juno crying out for help. But Sarah made that decision. It is me. I want to live this. I want to survive it. I'm getting out of here.
Also, dude, I got to talk about it. The scene where Sarah finally sees the light breaking through the surface of the earth and climbing over all those bones. It's almost like slow motion. And the shot of her putting her arm out, feeling the air above ground, and such a staple in my head to this movie and the franchise or horror in the genre alone. Like that, because like as a viewer too, you almost feel relief. Like I could finally breathe when even when she gets out. And it's such a cool shot we get. Sarah gets out, leaving Juno behind. And like I said, a very cool shot of her escaping, breaking through the surface. And she's hitting the road. She's getting the hell out of here. And she's, the way this movie basically wraps itself up is, she gets in the Jeep, speeding down the road. And I added it in our table talk, Junes, because we get like a Destination 2 semi with logs in the back. That's kind of why I threw that in there with our table talk for you. Little Easter egg there.
I love it.
And uh we see the semi with logs in the back, and we kind of see her hallucinating again, and it's like a creepy corpse of Juno, just like completely dead, kind of like rotted away, in the passenger seat next to her. And it like, I think she like might turn and like scare her, kind of, if you will, or something like that. And then that's basically just how the movie ends. And we just still learn Sarah is not over anything that's really happened to her in the past, even from a year ago. It's still heavily affecting her. Um, and we're kind of left on edge with that, dude. Even like to end it like that, I think very interesting approach, but I liked it. I don't think it was completely necessary. I think you could have ended this movie in a lot of ways, even when Sarah broke through the surface. There's a lot of things she could have done. Um, but interesting way to approach it. It was okay. Um, but looking at the overall movie, just incredible. Very incredible.
I love that zoom out moment at the last scene. She's in this side tunnel of this larger canvas of rock within the cave system, and it
Hmm.
just keeps zooming out. She has her one little self-made lantern that she made with burning fuel that she found from a lantern that was left way back. There was apparently some gas left in there. She doused it on something. She lit it on fire. It's just her in that little side system with the light burning, and it's I think that's a quiet way to end the film. It lets us know that she is not out for the fight of her life. She's still got a ways to go.
Man, it is rating time. We're gonna get
Let's
into
go.
ratings. So Rotten Tomatoes. I always do this, if you know, you know. Rotten Tomatoes. So Rotten Tomatoes has an audience score of 76%.
Okay. Okay.
Interesting. Yeah. They have a critic score of 87%.
That's pretty solid
So
all around.
it is. For this style of movie, for the things that happen, I'd say they're pretty spot on. It just comes down to the individual, really, that watches it. And I think having an audience score of 76% is right where it probably needs to be. At the end of the day, whether you hate it, whether you really love it, or if you're kind of in that middle ground where you're like, yeah, I'm right with the audience. I think it's a pretty good score for the movie.
I think that's pretty on par with what we'll end up with here. I can jump into mine if you want money.
Yeah, go ahead. If you want to go first, man, you do. Yeah, you do you. But yes, we will give now both of our scores. Little explanation behind it, but overall, Junes, I am so curious to see what you're going to give this movie.
Yes, sir. The Descent is the quintessential movie for the phobia subgenre. I don't think you're going to find a whole lot better. Close quarters, it's phenomenal. You can't get a whole lot better. And even though the entirety of the film is filled with darkness, the director ingeniously places light where it matters most, just enough to see the creatures that lurk in the shadows. That was amazing. The use of just minimal light in an absolute darkness filled cave was perfect. I don't think you could have done a whole lot better. And the fact that I was concerned for the safety of the cast just goes to show how well done the set design was. And then the creature design is superb. These humanoids are unlike anything I've seen. They're slimy, they're fast as shit, they're creepy looking, they're almost uncanny valley because these do look like humans in some ways, and our characters think that they were once upon a time humans that ended up being stuck down here and evolved. That was fantastic. It doesn't get a whole lot better. I must say, the attention to detail, it's at its finest, and the film hugely benefits from it money.
Hmm.
The existence of the creatures was cogent for me. Their evolved abilities created a formidable, ruthless antagonist in this film. My God, every scene we had with them was so tense, so chaotic. I felt that fear with the characters all throughout. The ending and the acting was okay, money. I didn't love it. The ending was, it was quiet. It wasn't super decisive on its overall message or ending, but I liked it. I thought it was fine. And I'm going to go with an even eight.
Okay. Even eight.
Yes, sir. So
Okay.
audience
Hey,
was 70.
I can respect it.
I'm very excited to hear yours.
Yeah, great explanation though, by the way. I'll get into mine now. Um and dude, I freaking loved how you brought up kind of like the phobia genre of this. It was I mentioned it earlier, it was mentioned in the trailer. Fear, claustrophobic or claustrophobia, just things that, you're not introduced to all the time bring is what this movie brings out. The cast being all female, basically. I'm gonna just say all female, dude, even though there's a guy in it. I'm basically saying all female. So good. So good. A plot like none other where characters turn on each other. You have a protagonist in the end. Shit hits the fan. The creature design too, you brought up, you couldn't have said it better. Phenomenal. Um, the way these characters learn about them and survive in a cave with fears and phobias coming out. Deaths from people that we get are crazy. The killing that they do amongst these humanoids, like you say, so good. The obstacles they have to, traverse through, so good. Even though it is a darker kind of movie, there's still light in it where it just makes these people look so messy, gross. The shots, one of my favorite shots in this is Sarah rising from that pool. So good, dude. Um, I'm kind of keeping it general, but like overall, just to me, this is such a good movie. It's in my top 10 for sure,
I
and
highly respect it.
I love the second one. If you haven't seen it, go see it. Um, but it's just a movie also to me. It's something that I can definitely rewatch. And, I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole, but overall, overall, based on previous rankings and other things that we've seen and where this movie lies between the lines, it's gonna have to fall. It's gonna fall pretty high, Junes. And with
Woo!
that, I'm gonna go 9-1.
Woo!
Oh yeah. The
God
descent, the
damn!
descent to me, dude, is so good. I love it. It's just a movie that it puts you in your place a little bit every time I watch it because of and that's the thing too, man. This movie not only has kills, which every horror movie needs, it creeps me the fuck out. It's scary. The characters are badass in this. It literally just reminds me of Tomb Raider. Like, you know, people take a stand on these creatures and they kill and they survive. And there's insane plot twists in this movie. The design and overall effects of everything, incredible. Junes, it's been a hell of a time, man. I love our passion of horror. I love talking about it every week with you. It's such a blessing, and I'm glad anyone out there listening feels the same way. I love indulging myself into this experience with you. Thank you guys for listening or watching or both. But it's been a hell of a time, dude. Stay tuned for our next episode. We will release that soon. Again, we're on that weekly time schedule, so stay tuned. Make sure to follow all of our socials. Again, that's at Scratching the Surface 100. It's been a hell of a time, dude. I love scratching the surface with you, Junes. Hope you're doing well and continue to have a fun time indulging yourself as we prepare for next week's episode. So, with that, it's been Scratching the Surface.